In July 1988, I thought I was living a dream. My name is Marcus Hill. I was a black guy from Detroit who worked 2 jobs and still smiled because I had Olga. Olga Carter. She was white, funny, and the kind of person who could turn a boring Tuesday into a little party. That summer, Michael Jackson came to London for a huge live show. Tickets were almost impossible to get. Olga surprised me with 2 seats high up, but close enough to feel the bass in our ribs. "This is our night," she said, kissing my cheek. "No work, no stress, just us. If you love real stories with twists, hit subscribe right now, because what I saw that night changed my whole life." We flew to London and walked with the crowd toward the stadium. People were singing, laughing, waving little flags. I held Olga's hand like I was holding luck itself. She kept looking around like she was nervous, but I thought she was just excited. Inside, the lights went down. The crowd roared so loud my ears rang. When the music started, I felt like the world had stopped and only that stage was real. Then during a break between songs, I saw someone I knew. At first I told myself no, that can't be him, but it was. Olga's father. His name was Richard Carter. He was strict, proud, always dressed like he had somewhere important to be. He didn't like me from the day we met. He shook my hand like he was touching something dirty. He never said it out loud, but I could feel it. He thought I wasn't good enough. Richard was not alone. He was leaning close to a young woman in a red dress, too close. His hand was on her lower back. She laughed, and he whispered something in her ear. She wasn't Olga's mother. She wasn't family. She looked about 25. My stomach turned cold. Olga had told me her parents were working on their marriage. She said her dad was trying. She said he was changing. I stared, frozen, like my feet had been glued to the floor. Olga noticed my face. "What?" she asked, still smiling. I didn't want to ruin the night. I really didn't. But my heart was pounding like a warning drum. "Olga," I said softly, "look over there." She followed my eyes. The moment she saw him, her smile dropped. Her mouth opened a little, like she couldn't breathe. For 1 second she looked scared. Then her face hardened, like a door slamming shut. "Marcus," she said, sharp. Don't what?" I whispered. "That's your dad. With who is that?" "It's none of our business," she snapped. "None of our business." I felt heat rise up my neck. "Olga, your mom thinks he's home. He told you he's staying out of trouble, and he's here in public with another woman." Olga's eyes flashed. "You don't get to judge my family." "I'm not judging," I said. "I'm telling the truth." She grabbed my arm hard. Her nails dug into my skin. "Stop, right now." I pulled my arm back. "Why are you protecting him?" Her voice dropped low. "Because you will embarrass me. And I won't let you do that." That sentence hit me like a slap. I looked again. Richard had seen us. He stared straight at me, not with fear, not with guilt, with anger, like I was the problem for noticing. I stood up. I don't know why. Maybe because I wanted to be a good man. Maybe because I thought Olga would want the truth. Maybe because I believed people could still choose what's right. I started walking toward him. Olga rushed after me. "Marcus." "Sit down." People turned their heads. The music was starting again, but I couldn't hear it. All I could hear was my own blood in my ears. When I reached Richard, he didn't even pretend. "Sir," I said, trying to stay calm. "Your wife." He cut me off. "Don't speak to me." I swallowed. "She doesn't know you're here." Richard stepped closer. He was taller than me, and he smelled like expensive cologne. "And you think you're going to tell her," he said, smiling without kindness. Olga arrived, breathless. "Marcus, please," she said, but her eyes weren't begging for peace. They were begging for control. I looked at her. "Olga, this isn't right." Richard's jaw tightened. The woman in the red dress rolled her eyes like she was bored. Richard turned to Olga. "Handle your husband," he said. "Handle," like I was a dog. Olga's face changed. And that was the first time I saw it, who she could be when she chose her father over me. "Marcus," she said loudly, so people around could hear, "why do you always do this? Why do you always try to start fights?" My mouth fell open. "What are you talking about? You're jealous," she said, pointing at me like I was the criminal. "You see my dad talking to someone and you act crazy." I stared at her. "Olga, you saw him." She didn't blink. "I saw you making up stories." The crowd around us was watching now. Faces turned. Whispers started. I felt my cheeks burn. Richard leaned in, calm as ice. "This is why I warned you," he told Olga, loud enough for others to hear. "He's unstable." Unstable. That word stuck to me, like mud. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. "Olga, I'm your husband." She took a step back from me, like she didn't know me, like she was ashamed of me. "Not tonight," she said. "Not here." Security noticed the tension and walked closer. A guard asked, "Everything okay?" Richard smiled and nodded. "Yes," he said, "my son-in-law is just having a moment." I looked at Olga one last time, waiting for her to tell the truth, waiting for her to stand beside me. Instead, she turned her face away. And in that second, under the bright stadium lights, I felt something inside me crack. Back in our seats, the show turned into fireworks and screaming fans, but my joy was gone. Olga leaned in and whispered through her teeth, "You embarrassed me." I said, "He embarrassed your mom." She replied, "You don't get to talk about my family." After the concert, outside near the taxis, Richard appeared again. The other woman was gone. He looked clean, calm, powerful, like he had done nothing wrong. Olga rushed to him, not to me, to him. I watched my wife hold her father's arm and say, loud enough for people to hear, "Marcus has been acting crazy lately. He always starts problems." My stomach dropped. It was a lie, a smooth, practiced lie. Richard smiled at me and said, "See, this is why you don't belong." I stepped closer. "Olga, why are you doing this?" She didn't answer my question. She only said, "Maybe we made a mistake." Then she walked away with her father, leaving me under a streetlight in a city that wasn't mine. And that was the first moment I realized. Someone was quietly planning to destroy me, and it wasn't just her dad. If you think a concert can't change your whole life, listen close, because one night at a Michael Jackson show turned my marriage into ashes. My name is Marcus Hill. I'm a black man from Detroit. In the early 1990s, I was 29, working long shifts at an auto parts warehouse, saving every extra dollar because I believed in building a real future. And I believed in my wife. Her name was Olga Carter. She was white, sharp, and beautiful in a way that made strangers stare. When we met, she laughed at my stupid jokes and said my smile made her feel safe. I thought that meant love, but sometimes people don't marry you for love. Sometimes they marry you for a story they can control. It was July 30, 1992, the night Michael Jackson performed at Wembley Stadium in London. Olga told everyone it was our once-in-a-lifetime trip. She said, "We'll remember this night when we're old." I didn't know she was right for the worst reason. We flew to London and joined the river of fans walking toward Wembley. People wore gloves and hats. Some even had little moonwalk stickers on their cheeks. The air smelled like popcorn and rain. Olga squeezed my hand tight, but not like she was in love, more like she was holding onto a secret. Inside the stadium, the lights dropped and the crowd exploded. When the first beat hit, my chest shook. I forgot every bill, every overtime shift, every worry. I leaned close to Olga and said, "We made it." She smiled back, but her eyes kept scanning the rows like she was searching for someone. Then it happened. During a break between songs, I stood to stretch my legs and looked across the aisle. Under the bright aisle lights, I saw a face I knew too well, Richard Carter, Olga's father. Richard was the kind of man who never raised his voice, because he believed his money was loud enough. From the first day he met me, he treated me like a mistake Olga would grow out of. He shook my hand with 2 fingers. He called me Marcus like my name tasted bitter. He never used the word, but I felt it. He didn't think a black man should be in his family. And Richard wasn't alone. He was leaning close to a young woman in a red dress, laughing with her like they were on a date. His hand rested on her waist. She touched his arm and smiled up at him. That woman was not Olga's mother. My stomach flipped. I tried to tell myself maybe it was a cousin, a coworker, anyone. But the way Richard looked at her soft, proud, private made the truth obvious. I turned to Olga. "Olga," I said quietly, "look over there." She followed my eyes. For half a second her face went pale. Then her jaw tightened and her expression turned cold like a switch clicked inside her. "Marcus," she hissed, "don't." "Don't what?" I whispered. "That's your dad, with another woman. Your mom thinks he's—" "Stop," she snapped, cutting me off. "It's none of your business." None of my business. Those words hit me harder than the music ever could. I lowered my voice even more. "It is your mom's business, and it's your business." He lied to her. Olga grabbed my forearm so hard her nails dug in. "You're not going to ruin this night for me," she said. I stared at her. "Ruin? Olga, he's cheating on your mother." Her eyes flashed. "And you're going to make a scene like you always do." I blinked. "Like I always do. I'm trying to." She leaned in close, smiling for the people around us while her voice stayed sharp as a blade. "You don't get to judge my family," she whispered. "You don't get to talk about my father." That's when I noticed Richard looking at us. He had seen me. He wasn't scared. He wasn't guilty. He was angry that I existed in his space. My heart hammered. I should have sat down. I should have let it go. But all I could think of was Olga's mother, a woman who had cooked us dinner and hugged me goodbye like I was her own son. I couldn't swallow the truth and pretend it was fine. I stood up, Olga's eyes widened. "Marcus, sit down," she warned. I stepped into the aisle, she rushed after me. "Marcus, please." But it wasn't a real please, it was a command dressed up as a plea. I walked straight to Richard. The woman in the red dress glanced at me like I was interrupting something fun. "Sir," I said, trying to stay calm, "your wife—" Richard cut me off with a smile that had no warmth. "Don't speak to me," he said. I swallowed. "She doesn't know you're here." Richard leaned closer. "And you think you're going to tell her?" he asked, like I was a child threatening a king. Olga appeared beside me, breathing fast. "Marcus, stop," she said. I looked at her. "Olga, he's humiliating your mother." "Why are you protecting him?" Her face hardened. "Because you're humiliating me." That sentence made my ears ring. The stadium noise faded like someone turned down the world. Richard turned to Olga and said, loud enough for nearby fans to hear, "Handle your husband." Handle, like I was an animal. I felt my cheeks burn. I looked around and saw strangers watching. Some were annoyed, some were curious. A few were smirking. And right then, I realized Olga wasn't afraid of the crowd seeing the truth. She was afraid of the crowd seeing who she was connected to. She raised her voice, sweet and theatrical. "Marcus, why are you doing this again?" she said, as if I had a long history of embarrassing her. "Why do you always start problems?" My mouth fell open. "What are you talking about?" "I just saw—" "You didn't see anything," she said, louder. "You're jealous, you're paranoid, you always think someone is out to get you." Richard nodded, calm as ice. "This is what I warned you about," he said. "He's unstable." A security guard stepped closer. "Sir, ma'am, everything okay?" Richard smiled at the guard like they were old friends. "Yes," he said. "My son-in-law is having a moment." Son-in-law. The word sounded like a joke in his mouth. I turned to Olga, waiting, begging for her to tell the truth, even if it hurt. I needed her to say, "Yes, that's my dad and this is wrong." I needed her to stand with me. Instead, she stepped back, away from me, like I was the danger. And in that moment, something inside me cracked. Back at our seats, the show continued. Michael danced, the crowd screamed, fireworks flashed, but I felt like I was underwater. Olga didn't hold my hand. She stared straight ahead like she didn't know me. When the concert ended and people poured out into the night, Olga walked fast. I followed, confused, trying to fix it. Outside, under a streetlight, Richard appeared again, alone this time, clean and powerful, like he had erased the woman in red from existence. Olga rushed to him first. Not to me, to him. I heard her say, loud enough for strangers to catch it, "Marcus has been acting crazy lately. He keeps making up stories." I froze. My throat went dry. She was lying smoothly like she had practiced. Richard looked at me and smiled. "See," he said, "this is why you don't belong." I stepped forward. "Olga, why are you doing this?" She didn't answer my question. She only said, "Maybe marrying you was my biggest mistake." Then she turned away with her father, leaving me in a city that wasn't mine, with no idea that this was only the first cut. If you want to know how I went from that streetlight to the strongest revenge of my life, hit subscribe. Because what Olga did next took everything from me. I didn't sleep that night. London felt cold even in summer. Our hotel room felt like a stranger's house. Olga lay on the bed with her back to me, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. I sat in the chair, staring at my hands, wondering how a single truth could turn into a lie so fast. "Why did you do that?" I finally asked. She didn't look up. "Do what?" "Out there," I said. "You made me look crazy." "You lied," she sighed, slow and tired, like I was a child asking too many questions. "Marcus, you embarrassed me in front of thousands of people." "I tried to protect your mother." "My mother is not your responsibility," she snapped. "My father is a powerful man, you don't get to challenge him." I stood up. "He's cheating on her." She rolled her eyes. "You don't understand our world." "Our world," I repeated. She turned and looked at me, really looked like she was measuring something. "You grew up different, you don't know how things work in families like mine." There it was, not loud, not cruel, just sharp and clear, families like mine. Not like yours. We flew back to the States in silence. On the plane, Olga wore headphones. I watched clouds pass under us and felt like my marriage was falling out of the sky. 2 weeks later, everything collapsed. I came home from work one evening and found the locks changed. My key didn't turn. I knocked. No answer. I called Olga, straight to voicemail. A neighbor stepped out and said, "Your wife had movers here this morning. Took a lot of stuff." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" She said you wouldn't be living here anymore. I stood there with my work bag in my hand, staring at the door that used to be mine. Later that night, a police officer handed me an envelope. Inside were divorce papers and a restraining order. Olga claimed I was emotionally unstable. She wrote that I had violent mood swings. She said she was afraid of me. Afraid, the woman who once said my arms made her feel safe. I went to my job the next day, hoping work would still be normal. My manager called me into his office. He looked uncomfortable. "Marcus," he said, "we got a call." "From who?" "Your wife's attorney. They said there are concerns about your behavior." I laughed because it felt unreal. "What concerns?" "They said you're unpredictable. That there was an incident in London." My stomach dropped. "They suggested we consider workplace safety." I stared at him. "So what are you saying?" He folded his hands. "We're placing you on unpaid leave. For now." Unpaid leave turned into termination 2 weeks later. I tried to call Olga. She blocked my number. I tried to go to her father's office. Security walked me out like I was a thief. My savings drained fast. Rent was due. My car got repossessed. One night, I slept on a bus bench with my jacket as a pillow. I kept asking myself the same question. Why, then, by accident, I found the answer. I went to a small cafe near the courthouse, using the last of my cash for coffee. The TV above the counter showed a local business interview. Richard Carter sat in a leather chair, smiling at the camera. "Family is everything to me," he said. "My daughter married young, but she's learned from her mistake. We're helping her start fresh." "Mistake?" the reporter asked. "What happened?" Richard smiled. "She trusted the wrong person." The screen changed to a photo of Olga, then to another photo. Olga with another man, a tall white man in a suit, his arm around her waist. The caption read, "Olga Carter with finance executive Adam Reed." My heart stopped. That man wasn't new, he was her cousin's friend. I had seen him at family dinners. He laughed too loud. He never shook my hand. Now he was her fresh start. I finally understood. It wasn't just about her father. It was about me. I was the wrong color in the wrong family. I remembered small moments I had ignored. How she corrected the way I spoke in front of her friends. How she avoided holding my hand in certain restaurants. How she once said, "You're different from most people." Different. I wasn't a husband to her. I was a phase. Something she tried, and then erased. I sat in that cafe shaking, holding a cup I couldn't drink. I had lost my home. I had lost my job. I had lost my wife. And I had lost my name. But what they didn't know was this. They hadn't taken my mind. They hadn't taken my will. They hadn't taken my future. I went to the public library the next morning. I used a free computer. I searched everything about Richard Carter. His companies. His deals. His partners. Powerful men leave trails. Dirty ones leave cracks. If you're still listening, subscribe, because this is the moment I stopped being a victim and started becoming something they never expected. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to disappear. I was going to rebuild. And when I stood again, I wouldn't ask them for a place. I would make them remember my name. I slept on buses, in shelters, on church steps. Some nights I stared at the ceiling and wondered how a man could vanish from his own life so fast. I used to wake up in my own bed. Now I woke up to strangers coughing and sirens screaming. But every morning, I reminded myself of one thing: I was still alive. I went to the public library every day, not to escape, but to learn. I read business books, legal guides, news articles. I wrote notes on scrap paper. I studied how companies moved money. I learned words like shell, front, and offshore. I learned that rich men rarely break the law loudly. They do it quietly through paperwork. One afternoon, an older man sat beside me. His name was Henry. He wore a worn jacket and smelled like coffee. "You read like a man with a reason," he said. "I lost everything," I replied. He nodded. "Then you're dangerous now. Men with nothing left are." Henry taught me how to fix old computers. We repaired donated machines for a small charity. After weeks, they paid me a little, enough for food. Enough for a room in a shared house. That room became my base. I worked days. I studied nights. One evening, while searching business records, I saw a name I knew: Richard Carter. His company owned real estate, shipping interests, and a consulting firm that didn't seem to consult anyone. I followed the trail. One address led to a warehouse with no sign. Another led to a firm that shared office space with 3 other companies. Shells. I remembered his calm smile in Wembley. Power hides well. I started keeping a notebook. Every connection, every address, Every partner, months passed, I changed. I cut my hair short. I gained muscle from labor jobs. I stopped begging the mirror for answers. I built a plan, not fast, not loud, smart. I took a job at a small logistics company, entry level, data input, boring. But boring teaches secrets. I learned how shipments were tracked, how invoices were hidden, how numbers could lie. One day I saw a familiar company name on a shipping manifest, Carter Global Solutions. My heart beat once. Hard. They were moving electronics overseas under donation labels. I copied everything. I sent nothing. I waited. If you're still here, subscribe because patience is the sharpest weapon. I saved money. I rented a tiny office under a false name. I opened a small consulting firm online. I used what Henry taught me. I helped small shops manage inventory, then I grew. A year passed. 2. My name changed. I became Marcus Gray. No one searched that. One night at a charity gala I volunteered to wire audio for, I saw her. Olga, she wore diamonds. She laughed with people who had never missed a meal. Beside her stood Richard. They didn't see me. I wasn't the broken man on the street. I was invisible, and that was perfect. I didn't feel hate. I felt clarity. They thought I was gone. They were wrong, very wrong. The next time I saw Olga up close, I realized something shocking. She didn't look happy. She looked polished. Like a shiny car with a broken engine inside. It was at that gala. I was standing near the sound equipment, wearing a plain black suit, pretending to be just another worker. Olga walked past me with Richard and a tall man in a gray suit. I recognized him immediately. Adam Reed. The finance executive from the TV caption. The man Olga replaced me with. Olga laughed at something Adam said, but her laugh sounded forced, like she was doing it because that's what a rich wife is supposed to do. Richard smiled wide, shaking hands, acting like a saint. That night I didn't go home and cry. I went home and opened my notebook, because now I had something better than anger. I had eyes on them. The next morning, I started building my revenge the way grown men do it when they don't want to end up in jail, through truth, proof, and patience. I didn't want to hurt Olga. I wanted to expose what they had done. I wanted the world to see who they really were, the same way the world had seen me that night at Wembley and believed their lie. Step 1 was simple. Get close without being seen. I used my new name, Marcus Gray, and my small consulting company, Gray Logistics Consulting. By then, I had real clients. Real invoices, a clean website, a phone number. I wasn't faking success anymore. I was building it. Then I did something risky. I emailed Carter Global Solutions. I offered a service. Audit support for shipping and inventory. I wrote in simple, confident words. I attached a clean proposal and a low price for the first month, like a baited hook. 2 days later, a woman called me. "This is Dana from Carter Global Solutions," she said. "Mr. Carter's office reviewed your proposal. Can you come in for a meeting?" My mouth went dry, but my voice stayed calm. "Yes. I'd be happy to." When I hung up, I sat still for a full minute, breathing slow. My hands trembled a little, not from fear, because the plan was working. If you want to see how quiet revenge becomes the loudest victory, subscribe, because the next steps changed everything. I walked into Richard's office building a week later. Same city, same air, different man. I wore glasses. I kept my beard trimmed. I carried a laptop bag and a folder of documents. I looked like a professional, not a problem. Dana led me into a conference room. Richard didn't come. Not yet. Instead, 2 managers showed up. They asked questions. I answered smoothly. I didn't brag. I didn't talk too much. I looked helpful, not hungry. Then Richard walked in. For a second, my heart tried to punch through my ribs. He stopped at the door and scanned my face. I kept mine neutral. He didn't recognize me, not even a flicker. In his mind, Marcus Hill was a dead chapter, a mistake erased. Richard sat down and said, "Mr. Gray, is it?" "Yes," I replied. He leaned back, satisfied, already acting like he owned me. "We need efficiency. We move a lot of goods and mistakes cost money." "I understand," I said. He stared at me. "Can you be discreet?" There it was, the real question. "Always," I answered. Richard smiled. "Good." He approved a trial contract right there. When I left the building, I walked to my car and sat with both hands on the steering wheel, breathing like I had just run miles. I wasn't proud of lying about my name, but I wasn't lying about my purpose. They stole my life with lies. I was taking it back with proof. For the next month, I worked inside their system. I reviewed shipping logs. I matched invoices. I checked warehouse counts. And I found what I expected. Numbers that didn't add up. Shipments labeled as charity donations with expensive items inside. Invoices split into smaller amounts to avoid certain reporting rules. A set of partner companies that seemed to get paid for services no one could explain. Richard wasn't just a man with a bad marriage. Richard was a man with dirty money. But I still needed something stronger than it looks suspicious. I needed something that could not be argued away, so I created step 2, the mirror. I built a fake vendor company. It was legal as a business, but it did not actually sell anything. It existed to catch them doing what they always did, moving money through fake services. I used a friend from my logistics job, a man named Lewis who owed me for helping him avoid bankruptcy. Lewis agreed to be the front person. Clean record, real identity, no connection to Marcus Hill. We named it North Bay Compliance Services. Then I waited. A week later, Dana emailed me. Mr. Gray, Mr. Carter wants to consider new compliance support vendors. Do you know anyone reliable? I stared at the screen. My pulse stayed calm this time. Yes, I typed. I can recommend North Bay Compliance Services. I've heard good things. The hook went in. 3 days later, North Bay got a contract, and then it happened. A payment arrived for compliance review that never happened. Then another, then a third. I documented everything, dates, amounts. Emails, signatures. I wasn't stealing. I wasn't extorting. I was letting them show their own face. Now I needed step 3, Olga, because deep down the wound wasn't just about money. It was about the way she stood beside her father and acted like I was dangerous. The way she watched me lose my job, my car, my home, and did nothing. So I watched her quietly. I found out Olga wasn't just living the rich life with Adam. She was trapped in it. Adam wasn't kind. He was controlling. He liked being seen with Olga, like she was a trophy that proved he belonged in Richard's world. I learned this from someone I never expected. Olga's cousin. Her name was Serena Carter. I met Serena by accident outside a small coffee shop near the business district. She was sitting alone, crying, wiping her tears fast like she was ashamed to be seen. I walked past, then stopped. Something in me said this mattered. Are you okay? I asked gently. She looked up and said, I'm fine. Her voice shook. I noticed her eyes. They were the same color as Olga's, but they were softer, real. I didn't push. I just said, if you need help, I can call someone. She stared at me longer than a stranger should. I know you, she whispered. My stomach tightened. No, I don't think you're Marcus, she said. Marcus Hill. I froze. Serena's eyes filled again. I saw you at family dinners. Olga used to bring you around like a test. Like she wanted to prove something. I felt heat in my chest. How do you know me now? She swallowed. Because Olga talks about you when she thinks nobody listens. I stepped back. Why would she talk about me? Serena's voice dropped. Because she ruined you and she knows it. My throat went dry. What do you want, Serena? She shook her head. I want out. I want the truth. And I'm tired of Richard. I didn't trust her yet, not fully, but something in her face looked like pain, not a trap, so I told her the smallest piece of truth. Richard is doing illegal things, I said. I'm collecting proof. Serena nodded like she wasn't surprised. Of course he is. Then she said the sentence that made my blood turn cold. Marcus, Olga didn't just cheat, Serena whispered. She married you to make Richard stop pressuring her. She needed someone Richard would hate enough to scare him into letting her live her life. My fists clenched. So I was a shield. Serena nodded. And when it didn't work, she threw you away to get back into his good graces. I stared at the ground. Every memory replayed differently now. The way Olga sometimes looked at me like she was studying a role. The way she pulled her hand away in certain places. The way she always cared more about what people thought than what was right. Serena added, and after Wembley, Richard demanded she fix the mistake. That's when she and Adam became official. My chest felt heavy, like stones were inside it. Serena leaned in. But Marcus, Richard has a weakness. I looked up. What weakness? Serena whispered. He's terrified of public shame. He can survive losing money. He can't survive losing his reputation. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just felt the plan sharpening itself. Over the next weeks, Serena fed me information quietly. She didn't steal. She didn't hack. She told me what she already knew from being inside the family. Richard had enemies, old partners who hated him. Adam Reed wasn't loyal. He was using Richard for access. Olga was pretending everything was fine, but she was falling apart. Then Serena said something that made my heart stop for a different reason. Olga is pregnant, she told me, and she doesn't know if it's Adam's. My mind spun. What do you mean? Serena's face tightened. Because she's been seeing someone else. I stared, shocked. Olga is cheating on Adam, Serena nodded. She learned from Richard. Lies are normal in that house. I sat back in my chair, silent. Life had a cruel sense of symmetry. The woman who destroyed me with a lie was now drowning in her own. That's when I planned the moment of truth. I gathered everything. The fake vendor payments, the suspicious shipping logs, the split invoices, the email trail, the signatures. I prepared a clean package, the kind investigators could understand in 5 minutes. Then I did the boldest thing yet. I sent Richard a message from Marcus Gray's email. I discovered discrepancies in compliance payments, I wrote. We should meet privately. It could become a serious issue if mishandled. Within an hour, I got a reply. Meet tomorrow, 8 p.m., my private office. Richard was biting the hook with his whole mouth. That night, Serena called me, breathless. Marcus, she said, Olga knows something is coming. She told me she saw your company name on paperwork. She's suspicious. My stomach tightened. Did she connect it to me? I don't know, Serena said. But she's scared. I looked at the folder of evidence on my desk. The proof of crimes, the proof of lies, the proof of everything they did behind closed doors. Tomorrow night, Richard would sit across from me thinking he could control the situation like he always did. He didn't know he was about to meet the man he tried to erase. And Olga was about to learn something too, not just that I survived, but that I came back with receipts. And the next part is where the trap finally closes. Richard arrived at his private office 10 minutes early. He always liked to control the room before anyone else entered. The city lights outside his window made him look powerful, untouchable. He didn't know that every move he had ever made was now sitting inside my laptop. I walked in 5 minutes later. He stood, extending his hand. Mr. Gray, he said politely. I didn't take it. Instead, I looked straight into his eyes and said, You still don't recognize me, do you? His smile froze. I reached up and removed my glasses. The room went silent. His face drained of color. Marcus, he whispered. The name came out like a ghost. I closed the door behind me. You left me on a street in London, I said calmly. You told the world I didn't belong. You took my wife, my job, my home. And you thought I disappeared. Richard slowly sat down. His hands trembled for the first time in his life. You don't belong here, he said weakly. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. This belongs here, I replied. I showed him everything. Every shell company, every fake invoice, every donation shipment filled with expensive goods, every email, every payment to North Bay, every signature, every lie. Richard stared like he was watching his own reflection shatter. You won't survive this, he said. I leaned forward. You won't survive if I release it. He swallowed. What do you want? He asked. I didn't ask for money. I didn't ask for power. I asked for truth. I want Olga to know who she really married, I said. I want your empire cleaned, and I want you to confess. You can't force me, he said. I clicked a single button. A pre-written email appeared, addressed to a federal investigator, set to send in 60 seconds. His breath caught. You taught me something at Wembley, I said. That reputation is your oxygen. His shoulders sagged. Call her, I said. He did. Olga arrived 30 minutes later. She walked in confident, then she saw me, her face collapsed. Marcus, she whispered. You remember me now, I said. She looked at her father. What is this? I showed her everything, the crimes. The lies, her father's voice on recordings, her father's fear, her own messages exposed by Serena. Olga sank into a chair, tears streamed. I didn't mean to destroy you, she said. You didn't mean to, I replied. You chose to, she looked up. Why are you doing this? I answered softly. Because you erased me like I was nothing, and I learned that silence is how people like you survive. Richard signed a full confession. I sent the file. 2 days later, the news exploded. Carter Global Solutions raided. Richard arrested. Partners fled. Adam disappeared. Olga's world collapsed in public. I didn't watch with joy. I watched with peace. Weeks later, I met Serena at the same cafe. She smiled gently. You won, she said. I shook my head. I survived. She took my hand. You're not alone anymore. I built a real company, a clean one. I rebuilt my name. I didn't become rich overnight. I became free. And Olga, she wrote me once. I see you now, she said. I never replied, because the greatest revenge isn't punishment. It's becoming so strong, so whole, that the people who broke you no longer exist in your future. If this story taught you anything, remember this. They can take your home. They can take your love. They can take your name. but they can never take the fire inside you unless you let them. Subscribe, because every ending like this proves one truth. The man they tried to erase became the man they could never escape.